I'm speaking to Setha Low, who is an anthropologist and an environmental psychologist who is based at the Graduate Center of the City University of New York, and she's the head of the Public Space Research Group. And Setha, we've been working together for a long time on public space research. And one of the looming questions, of course, is why is public space important? What is it about public space that makes it such an important public good?
Believe it or not, the simplest question of why public space matters is both the easiest question to answer and yet at another level the very hardest. You can say to people, well, it's where our children come or get grown up. It's where we can get fresh air. It's where families in New York or in Latin America who live in apartments can have huge barbecues and be together. It's a place where we can run and be healthy. They're the lungs of the city. It's the connective tissue. But all of that to everyone seems like, well, they take that for granted in some countries, and they're not also imagining neighborhoods in their own cities. Again, I'm going to go back to New York or even San Jose, Costa Rica, where I live. And in fact, there aren't those kinds of places for everyone. And that those are places to work, those are places to connect, those are places of dissent, those are places of communication, they're places of memory, and in fact are the fiber of social solidarity for so many communities. And without them, social life would really be bereft. And that's even without touching the kinds of things you are interested in, Michael, which has to do with the connection of parts of the city, of the way we move, of the wildlife corridors, or any of the runoff bases, or having green, or all the other kinds of ecological concerns. I mean, I admit that my goal in life, or in my work, and now in my career, has been to improve social relations, to be tolerant, respectful, just, caring, to make our cities even more that way at moments in which it seems like there's so much conflict. If you go into any small part of the city, you can really foster new kinds of relations, new kinds of hope, new images of the future. And that's why public space matters. But a lot of the people, at least in the United States that I speak to, maybe less so in Costa Rica or Argentina, where I go often, will say, but Setha, why through public space? And I go, well, public space is the microcosm of our entire societies. Everything that happens in our worlds, both in terms of meaning and in terms of politics and economics, are represented in our public spaces. And if we can make them or create them in a way that's really healthy and viable and vibrant, and in my case, not private necessarily, but truly public for all and truly inclusive for all, I'm imagining that will also represent the kind of societies that we're creating.
Setha, you and I were involved in the Habitat 3 conference where the outcome document known as the New Urban Agenda was adopted with a lot of emphasis on public space and livability, quality of life, and that's related to the Sustainable Development Goals as well. And that was adopted by acclamation by all 193 countries of the United Nations, which is a big deal. But there's a huge challenge for implementation. And so what do you see as the key lessons for this moment in history?
I think there are people all over the world really committed to trying to free, just, democratic, healthy public space. And yet, we're all working separately. We're all doing these things differently. I mean, as I said, I'm an anthropologist, I'm an academic, I'm interested in field studies. I'm working on this great database project in which we're looking at all kinds of research from all the different disciplines and what it can tell us about how to make public space better for everyone in throughout the globe. And yet, at the same time, I know I have counterparts everywhere in the world. And one of the reasons that these meetings are so important and why it's a step beyond Habitat 3, where we were able to get public space, right, on the agenda, on the new urban agenda, that was so important. Well, okay, that's there now. Now what do we do about it, and how do we prioritize what kinds of interventions? Who's going to do the interventions? In my case, how do I get the years of research that either I've done, my colleagues have done, we collectively have done, how do we get it into the design and planning of the new urban world that we're looking at? How do we create a really just city, a just city that in which there's public space for all in all the ways possible? I hate to say it, but I don't think we have done enough to bring us all together and to look at what each of us can bring to the table. Hopefully, collectively, we can pull together and have a much bigger impact than we've been able to over the past, say, 20 years, because now the moment is right, and now we have the backing of the new urban agenda. Now we have UN Habitat with us and leaders from all over the world really caring about the new world we're creating and what can we do to make it better.